Okay, good afternoon once again. Today we are going to look at a little bit more of how we can use the tools. And then we're going to look at some of the SDKs that are available. I believe we've already used most of these SDKs in the process of doing some of the tasks. But we're going to look at some of these SDKs, and then we're going to do a bit of hands-on how you can call this. There's one very neat idea that we'll do at the end of this class where we will use 3 or 4 different AI providers and run them through a prompt chain and see what we get out of it, right? So then we're also going to see how we can just build a very simple microservice that will be able to you define some functions, some functionality that it will do, and then you run it as a microservice, basically an endpoint that you can call or you can deploy, right? So let's get to it. All right. So for today, we are going to start with how we can use SDKs from OpenAI, from Google, Gemini, from Anthropic, and Hugging Face. How to call REST APIs manually. We've been doing it anyway. So and then streaming responses. So streaming responses is important because a lot of the LLMs, they may not give you the response, at once. So it may come in stream, especially if it is things like really long responses or files or even videos, right? So you have to know how you can handle the responses that come from them, cache the results, and then use them. Then how to orchestrate APIs, using Node.js, using Python, how to design a cost-effective microservice, and then how to build a simple AI pipeline using multiple providers. So are just going to be examples that we will use. And all of these are basically hands-on. So I don't have any slides today. I'm basically going to open my Jupyter notebook and we'll begin to try these things out. So I'm going to start. I will use Colab. So I'm going to open up a new Colab, and last time, remember I was using VS Code so to try out a few things. But here I just want to, because here with the notebook I don't really need to install a lot of things, right? So it's easier for me and it's faster. Okay. So we will start with the first, right? Um, so I'll just go through some of the SDKs. You can actually check them out on their site. So for example, let's start with OpenAI. OpenAI has a very platform.openai.com. They have a very neat client that they have written, which makes it really easy for you to do stuff. In fact, just typing on platform.openai.com, it takes you to their docs documentation page, as you can see here. And it gives you this very basic JavaScript, which you can do. I will actually do this JavaScript maybe using I'll do a bit of JavaScript and then I'll do a bit of Python as well. So using um CodePen. So CodePen. So yeah, now the thing with OpenAI, which I found, I'm sure you would have found, is OpenAI doesn't give us a free it doesn't give us a free API service. They give us free models, but you have to host those models yourself. And so you can download some of their free models, right? But you have to host them yourself, or you have to go to a hosting service. OpenAI typically is not going to, they don't give you free hosting. So that's why you have to have make some payment. You have to register, make some payment. So that's how OpenAI works. So because of that, you really won't be able to use OpenAI unless you have already made an account and you have made some payment. Okay, then I think this should just work, right? If I check my console. So it's already giving me errors. Okay. So this won't work in CodePen, I guess. I would have to import it. I need a playground where I can, so I can run this locally on my VS Code. So let me run this on VS Code then. But for Python, right, we have this same library in Python. So you can always choose the programming language, Curl, JavaScript, Python, and C Sharp. So I'm going to take it to Python code example. And then I can run it here. So this is just a basic thing. Of course, it's going to tell me that I don't have the API key. So typically with OpenAI, right, you import from OpenAI, you call the client. When you call the client, then you use this interface, client.responses.create. You specify the model. This is like the simplest one where you just give it an input. This one, this interface is simple. You don't need to specify. You don't specify history. You don't specify temperature. I don't even think, you know, um, I don't think you can even do all of that here, right? But this is like the simplest interface. Of course, I don't have an API key. So if I want this to work, I need to create an API key first, which you can easily do by just create a .m file here, and then put in the API key. So I can create a new file and I can name it .env here, and then I can double click to open it, and then I will add the OpenAI API key. But like I said, I will not likely still succeed because my OpenAI API key um it doesn't have a paid plan. So it still is not going to allow me to access. But let me just show you how it works, just for the sake of demo. Now, the interesting thing with OpenAI is that their client is usable. A lot of other AI service providers have basically adopted the OpenAI client as a standard. Because remember, OpenAI started off as an open um, I wouldn't say open source, right? But an open, well, that's what OpenAI means. It was supposed to be open and maybe even open source, right? That's what it was meant to be, so that people can easily have access, to AI, so that it won't be only for the AI superpowers, the big companies. But of course, that story has changed now. OpenAI is not really, they're fighting to not be open, and people are fighting against them to remain open. So so that's the story of OpenAI. So anyway, this is how it works. So once you have OpenAI's API key and then you put the the API key in there in your .m file. This should now work, but I know it's going to tell me, oh yeah, I need to load this because it's not directly available. The API key is not directly available, so I have to load it this way. You use the OS, you use the OS, you use the OS module, and then you can do OS dot get environment, right? So you get this environment variable. Then we can pass the API key in as a parameter here. Um, Normally it should be API key. So I just want to be sure. Okay, yeah, you pass it in when you are creating the client, I forgot. So API key equals, yes. So you do that. So I don't really need this anymore. So when you are creating the client, you pass the API key. There are other things you can pass in as well, the base URL. So we'll talk about this when we are using the same clients for Open Router, which we are going to explore a lot of stuff that are available in Open Router and how we can do. As a matter of fact, we are going to use Open Router a lot. So API key client option must be set either by passing API key to the client or by setting the OpenAI API key. Okay, so I have done that, but it's still giving me this error. So uh, let's try again. Okay, so what I will do is confirm that it's actually seeing it's actually seeing my environment variable, which is possible that it's not seeing it. So the environment variable is not seen. Still open AI API key. So this has happened to me before where I set up this environment variable, but for some reason it doesn't see it. So the next thing I can do is use .env. So .env is a library in Python that allows you to load, yeah, okay, to load environment variables. So they have this load.env function, which you call. So what that does is that it loads the contents of the .env file into your environment variable space, into your operating system's environment variable space. So hopefully this time around, this will trigger what I want. Yes, so it does. Yes, yes. JavaScript also has a .env as well. So you can now see that the error is telling me I exceeded my current quota. So it's not as if I exceeded any quota. I didn't really have a quota because I don't have any paid subscription. I tried paying, but they rejected my card. So yes, they rejected my card. I have a card that I loaded. I normally load a card and use. I don't use my dumb card because they can keep on charging on ending, charges to my card. So I load a card and I send, and they rejected that card. So I just said, okay, to hell with you, OpenAI. Right. So that is OpenAI. Basically, you just connect, and there are a bunch of other things you can do. But because I don't have that, I won't dwell too much on it. Um, but you can always go through their documentation. They have really nice documentation actually. So they even have this agentic um, part of it where you can build agents. You can build agent workflows, right? And basically, when you build the agent workflows, then you can run them. So this is something I would encourage, they have an agents SDK as well, which you can use. If you check the documentation, you see um, it's in the OpenAI developers. So if you go to the OpenAI developers, you see the agentic where you can do stuff. Oh, they have Codex, by the way. Codex is a coding agent. So right now, this is the next level. The first level was LLMs. LLMs basically allow you to converse and they give you stuff. Now, agents are a way of leveraging on LLMs to do more complex workflows, more complex things. The agents basically will think of agents like a super high prompt chain, right? So it's a prompt chain on steroids, basically, right? So you can break down complex workflows and run them through agents, and you can have different agents doing different stuff, and then you can orchestrate those agents, together. So then they have API platform and of course the apps SDK, which I think that's what we looked at. Um, so I encourage you to go and check, you know, what they can do. So these are examples. This is a basic example, like I said, where you just, you know, um, send a prompt through this input, right? You specify the model, then you specify the prompt you want to send. And remember we talked about designing prompts. You have to design your prompts very well. And then it gives you a response that looks like this, okay? And then you can, you know, send this back to your, UI or to the user, or you can do other stuff. Then there's a section here on prompt engineering. We've talked about prompting and prompt engineering already. So it, this is now a more, you can also pass input as a list, right? That contains a more structured set of prompts. You can include role developer or role user or role system, right? So that gives you a better, more nuance, more control over how the LLM will handle and respond, right? So you are basically giving what this is what we call a high level instruction, which is additional context of how it should respond. So there are two ways. One way is sending it this way, right? But the other way is you know, putting in um as part of this array of prompts, and you specify the role as a developer role. We also have a system role and so on. Most of the time, the user role is the prompt that the user is sending. So you are basically going to pass it across. So these other roles allow you to fine tune how your LLM responds to whatever input the user has typed, because you may never know, you may not really know what the user has typed. Okay, like what we did with the prompt moderation. Okay, then there is this thing that you see, reasoning. So we'll talk a little bit about reasoning. Reasoning is basically like new additional features that have been added to LLMs where they think deeper before they give a response. They don't just do a shallow initial check based on their training, but they look at other sources. They look for, they look at other tools, they look at other things, right? And try to get in more information, more context before they give you a response. Then OpenAI has this model spec that you can go and read to check out how the model gives different levels of priority to messages based on the roles. So if you choose a developer role, then the messages are considered as instructions that are provided by the application developer. So it's prioritized ahead of user messages. So what this means is when you are prompting or when you're sending, if there's anything that you as a developer want to add, you use the developer role. Then the user are messages that the end user that is using your own app is going to send. You are just passing it across to the OpenAI LLMs. So its priority will be prioritized behind the developer messages. And then the messages that are generated by the model will be given the assistant role. Then there's something they call reusable prompts, which you can create on their dashboard so that you don't need to keep rewriting those prompts, right? You can just basically reuse them if they're already in you've already put them up on your dashboard. So in your developer dashboard. So I would encourage you to go look at what they have. Try things out on your own. Now, the next one I would like us to look at is let's look at Anthropic. So Anthropic also has an API that kind of it follows the same kind of thing that you have in Open AI. So let's see. So it's the same thing, right? Now in this case, Anthropic is not installed, so I'll have to install it. Then so Anthropic is the owner of Cloud, all the Sonnet series and all of that. So I'm going to install this here. So if you're using a notebook, one way you can install is use this exclamation mark. Exclamation mark allows you to run shell scripts basically from the notebook, even though it may not be all that you'll be allowed to. So I just pip install it, which is how we install stuff with in Python. So once it installs, it should now be available. That's light brown underline has gone, meaning it is there now. I can then run. So again, here I need to, it's still going to ask for an API key, right? So we can look for an API key. But you notice that it basically uses the same pattern, clients.messages.create. So it makes you wonder whether it's probably not using the OpenAI under the hood, maybe with some of their own small modifications. So in the same thing, you will still pass in a model, then max tokens. So let me talk about max tokens. You need to be careful when you're specifying max tokens. Max tokens is you are telling the LLM that its response should not exceed. One of the submissions that I had a max token that was too low, and there was no response, coming across. So um, this is something to beware of, but it helps you to control if you want to minimize what we call the verboseness or the verbosity of the response. You can use max tokens. Then messages is a list of the messages you are sending. So just like any other one, you have role, user, and then content. Now, okay, so how do we install on JavaScript? Let's go to their site. Um, so you can go to the developer docs. So developer docs, um, you have a reference, you have a getting started. Typically get started will give you all the initial things you need to do for you to install. So you have to have an API key. You export it as an environment variable. Then whenever you are making API calls, this is using curl. In their own case, you pass the API key as a header in the API call, right? In the HTTP call, you pass it as a header. The header is x-API-key. That's actually the error. That's what it was telling me here, that I did not pass x-API-key. So as a developer, I'm sure everyone here, you know how you can send a header. So you send this. You can also send the version as a header along with the content type header. So these are three headers. In curl, the -h is used. Then the data is, since it's a application, it's a JSON data format, you just pass it in as a JSON string. And messages follows the same pattern, right? So you have max tokens, and then you have the message role and content, right? And it's going to give you this output. So how do we install? So this is using an API call, by the way. Let me see for their SDK. There is TypeScript, so you can go check in TypeScript. So for TypeScript, this is how you would install it. npm install anthropic-ai/SDK. So you install it, and you can then import it as usual. And the code is basically the same thing, right? You create a new instance of the client. Anthropic equals new Anthropic. Then you run anthropic.messages.create. Is again passing the model. This is as a regular, this is not a JSON anymore because you are inside JavaScript now. So you use normal JavaScript notation, model, you specify the model name, the max tokens, and the message is still follows the same format, right? And because it is async, you have to do await, right? So that's for a message. Then yeah, you can run the code with npx, or you can just run with node, and then you run it. So you can do this with node, and that works. So that's Anthropic. I don't have a key either, so I'm just going to jump to the next one. Hugging Face is the next one. So Hugging Face, so by the way, Anthropic gives you access to Claude. We are told that Claude is very good with coding tasks. Now we have Hugging Face. So Hugging Face is quite interesting. Hugging Face.co, in that it hosts um it has this thing they call space, an AI space. So an AI space allows you to host your model, and then you can invite people to it. So this is one thing I like about it. But it hosts a lot of additional um, other models that you can go and try out. So you can go to the models, and you can just So if you look at their models, you see there are a whole lot of them. And a lot of these are, um, you know, they're open source. They host open source. I use Minimax a lot. Minimax AI, Minimax M2, right? DeepSeek also, DeepSeek OCR. So the good thing with this is you when you have Qwen image edit. So you can access a lot of the image. OCR is optical character recognition. So for handwriting recognition, for example, or any other thing, basically. So these models are just like this is like a treasury of models that you can use for almost anything. So you choose there are 100 pages of models here. 2 million, 2 million, 2.2538. Some of them are paid, so you still have to pay subscription. Some of them are free, right? So to access it, they have so you can go check their documentation. They also have data sets. So Hugging Face also trains models. They allow you can train your own models. You can fine tune their own models. So you can download models, fine tune, and then even upload them into your own space. I'm going to show you what they do with their spaces at the end of this. But go check out their documentation, and they basically use the same kind of libraries as I think it's similar to the OpenAI library. So if you look at the Python library, you can look at their JavaScript. They have a Hugging Face.js, which I just saw it. So if you're JavaScript, you can also check out Hugging Face.js. So you have it basically allows you to do this. You can interact with the hub directly, creating spaces, uploading files. So theirs goes beyond just being able to call the LLMs. You can do other stuff. And then you can do the inference as well for any inference provider. So you specify the model, and then you can specify the provider as well if it is not the core Hugging Face. Because other people also provide, they essentially act as a place where people can upload. So you can upload yours and you can point your friends and teammates to it. It's a good place for you to do projects together as a team because it means you can actually go get a model, you can train it, fine tune it. And we're going to make use of either Hugging Face or Open Router when we bring the different teams together, right? Because part of what we'll do in CodeCamp 5X is we will have the ML team training, fine tuning a model, and then we'll have the AI for developers team building APIs, or connecting to those models with APIs. And then the agentic team will use your APIs to build agents. So there will be projects that's going to be part of this. So this will be a very good way for us to kind of collaborate in that way, upload your models, and then you can connect to them. So the same pattern, you see messages, yeah, you see multiple, each message you specify the role and the content, which is the actual prompt. You can specify the maximum number of tokens. Here is 512. And the temperature. Temperature is the higher the temperature, the more creative you want the LLM to be in coming up with responses. So you have a lot of JavaScript libraries here, inference, the hub, which allows you to interact with the hub, the MCP client, which is a model context protocol client, right? Basically a tiny agent library. Then you have GGUF, DDUF, which is a diffuser. Um, then, a lot of things. You have Olama, which allows you to maintain compatibility with Olama models. Yeah, so most of the time you probably just use inference and maybe hub, maybe MCP client. The inference is what allows you to connect and do inference. and you can put it straight in your HTML file in a script tag, or you can use Dino, right? Or you can just use a standard Node.js, approach. So that's for JavaScript. Then for Python, so again, I'm going to try to run um, some samples with Python. Remember, I think I have a Hugging Face API key. Yeah. Okay, so while Hugging Face is opening up, let me open router is another interesting place that basically you can see they all look like. They are built the same way, built from the same thing. So okay, so this is client library installation. So we can basically install Hugging Face Hub and all of that. But I want to do inference. So to do inference, basically just so for example, this is a good example of a text to image task. So let's try this and see if we can have access to this. With Hugging Face, you can do a lot. Hugging Face started off mostly as um, an image, AI company focused on image generation using their very nice they started off this whole transformer stuff, and they've been doing a lot of research. Okay, so I'm going to put in an API key. I think I have an API key already, so I'll just move that in here. So I'll put in my .m file again. Okay, right. So to get the API key, it's basically going to be os dot get and hf API key. Okay, so I've created an inference client. Right. So now I want to do a simple image to text task. So Hugging Face is really good with image to text. So you know all of these things that we do with Midjourney and all of that, right? It's image to text. So this is a good example, a flying car crossing a futuristic cityscape, right? So it's going to create this, and then I can save the image, and I'll be able to see the image after saving it. So let's see how that goes. All right, so let me run this. Okay, so it's saying I think I need to run the .m.load.env again. Probably my environment is probably outdated. So let's do it again. .m .env .load.env. It seems my environment might be outdated. Okay, so let's right. So it's done that. Now I want to save the image. So the image should be saved here, hopefully. Right. So remember the prompt. The prompt was a flying car crossing a futuristic cityscape. And I have that saved here. And I'm going to double click on it to open it. And there you have it. So Hugging Face is really smooth with these images. In fact, the images are so nice. If you are a creative person, look, you basically, I love this. I'm going to do a few more. Let me do a few more. Right. So give me a prompt. I would like um I would like you guys to type some prompts for me. Let me do image stuff. I always wanted to do image stuff, right? So I'm going to write a function to do this. Basically, um yeah, so let me do a function. Generate image from prompt. So this will be the prompt. Then it basically does this: replicate image, replicate client dot text to image, prompt, the model, save. Um, okay, let me put file name as well so that it will image save file name. Okay, so I now have a function that I can keep calling. So generate image, generate image from prompt. So the prompt a man walking on farmland. Okay. So then I'll call that one farmland dot png. So let me take that. I need more interesting prompts. Okay, so I'll run this. So hopefully it should have saved it for me. Right, so farmland. So so the thing is with this, you don't know what you get, right? You don't know what you get. And look at the quality of these images. Like this thing is tripping me. Look at the quality of this. Look at the quality of these images. Hugging Face is really good with images. The quality is outstanding. Even though this man, I'm looking at his fingers though. One, two, three, four. I always count the fingers. One, two, three, four. This one should be a thumb, but it still looks like a finger. One, two, three. But these guys are really good with these things. If your prompt is much cleaner, you are going to get if your prompt is more specific, you're actually going to get a young boy hawking a farm product. You didn't specify, okay, young boy will assume, let's see what this young boy will be. One of the things I've noticed with this AI is the biases, they will always tend to generate. You will hardly see uh, Africans in all of these things, unless you explicitly mention that it should be African. As a matter of fact, I should turn this into anyway, let's keep the I wanted to make it into okay, yeah, then the file name young boy. Okay. So it's going to save it up here as young boy. Okay, let's see how that one looks. Uh, it doesn't know what hawking means. Well, maybe it's hawking. What is it? Looks like corn. This is this is GA GANs basically. When it comes to images, they've mastered it. This one, he has three fingers. Okay, well, the fourth one you can say is hiding. So one, two, three, four. So is what I was saying. Like that's why we talk about prompting or prompt engineering. It really matters in all of this kind of stuff, creative stuff, because if you are not very specific, it's going to just it's going to it's going to just generate whatever it likes for you. Let me try this other prompt. A black woman in her mid-30s. Okay, so black woman. Okay, that one was fast. Wow, but three fingers. Three fingers. Three fingers. Can you believe that? Three fingers and a thumb. That's interesting. On this side, still three fingers on this other hand. Anyway, so hugging face is interesting. Right, so these are some of the flaws that we see in AI. If I don't know whether it's a prompt that you have to be very careful with the prompt. Will you tell the prompt, the AI, she must have four fingers and one thumb, and perhaps. Okay, so let's check another one. We should try that. Write the prompt now. Write the prompt for me. I'll paste it. Okay. Yeah. So apart from the text to image, which is just one of the functions, it has other ones as well. It has a text generation. So text generation is the normal LLM that it does, right? So the good thing is that it also has this nice text to image. You can also have text to speech, right? I know that Whisper is open AI, and you can do text to speech with it. I think I would like to try the text to speech. A young boy trying to survive in Nigeria. Kill young boy Nigeria. Okay. I have lots of prompts. Copilot has woken up now. Lab, lab technician. So young boy in Nigeria. Oof, oof. This is bias, right? Some people say this is racism. Okay, I won't say anything. Um, Laboratory technician. Let's see what we get from there. Okay. The laboratory technician carrying out destructive tests on the concrete sample. So, well, this looks interesting. So now we didn't specify the color of the skin, and so there's always bias. That's one thing we should all be careful about, especially coming from an African background, one thing you need to understand is that most of these LLMs are trained on data that are non-African, right? Maybe might be 10%. They are trying now to include more balanced, distribution of data from everywhere, right? But most of these LLMs are trained on data that doesn't have a lot of content from Africa. Of course, Africa doesn't even have a lot of content for that matter in the first place. How many Africans compared to the rest of the world are on the internet? Now, how many of our pictures are out there? So the training data from Africa is really small. So even if people really want to, bring in a balance of it, right? It's still going to be difficult. Still going to be difficult. Okay, so this is a more detailed prompt. Young boy 2. Let me see if it does well. A black woman in her mid-30s is talking about the future of AI and blockchain. Make sure she has 5 fingers. So you said make sure she has 5 fingers in each hand, but you still got 3 fingers on this one. So one other thing is AI doesn't know how to count. Let the background of the picture have symbols and of shapes pertaining to AI and blockchain. Well, it has tried its best. Okay, it has tried its best. That's tried its best. Okay, so let's see if I can try before we go to Open Router. Let's see if we can try um I want to see if we can do some some speech. Does it have speech? Inference. We have text to image, right? We have this is standard inference with chat, but I don't think it has speech here. Okay, there's automatic speech recognition. How about speech synthesis? Audio to audio. So it's only HF inference that has it. I guess this is supported providers. So this is a good place to come and check if you need some kind of capability where you can get it text to speech. So I would like to try out the text to speech, but I don't know how to do that. Um, so you have OpenAI compatibility. Just use inference and that's all. It's fully compatible with OpenAI. Yeah, then there is what we call function calling. We are going to do some work with function calling. This is where you as a developer come in because with function calling, basically you will be able to write functionality or use existing functionality, and then you tell the LLM to call that function, right? That's what function calling is. So you specify it in LLM lingo or in agent lingo, agentic lingo is called a tool. A tool is an external capability that you give to an LLM by writing it, by hard coding it, right? So you define this tool. So this is how you can define a tool. You specify the type of the tool. It's a function. So it's a function you root. Then you specify the content of the function, right? And the function, the name is get weather, right? Description is get current temperature for a given location. Then the parameters are the things that you pass into the function. So you have parameters, you have a type, an object. The first parameter, the type is object. The properties of that object are location. Location, the type is a string, right? And the description of that is city and country. Then you specify which parameters are required parameters, in this case, location. So you create a client, and then you now client.chat.completions.create. You give it this. You now add tools, right? Tools. Then the tool choice is auto. Okay. And then when it does that, it's able to call the function, right? So we are going to look at that not today, but next week when we start integrating LLMs with other functionality. We are going to look at that. So this is, if you want to give it a structured output, then you can give it a schema, like a JSON schema. The name of the schema, the content of the schema, you have properties, name, the properties of the schema. You have the name as one property, title is names, type is string, authors is the other property, items. So basically, they are giving us an API or an interface that allows us to specify how we want it to give the output. So when we are now calling the LLM for inference, you specify the response format. So we already know the model and the messages, the role and the content, but this time you specify the response format, right? That the type should be JSON schema, and the JSON schema is this one that you had defined. Then you also have asynchronous clients. So asynchronous clients are clients, if it's going to take a while to do what it needs to do, you can just you create an async inference client, and then you await, right? So await will mean it waits until it has downloaded everything, and then you can save the image. Same thing with text generation. You can also have an await, right? And it specifies streaming. So we are going to talk about streaming shortly. Yeah. So there's a lot here, interesting stuff. So let's go to the next one. The last one I want to touch before we move on to other things is the Gemini. So Gemini gives us a very simple interface for us to work with, simple SDK. So for Gemini, this is what you do. You import Google.generative AI as Gen AI, right? And then you configure the Google API key. So yeah, I will have to copy the API key and put it in here in the .m file. So we have Gemini, I call it Gemini API key. So I'll just change this to Gemini API key. I have to reload the environment variable. So .m .load .m. Okay. So we run genai.configure. So you specify, you configure with this API key. And then after that, we can go into prompting. So we can do basic text generation, right? So we choose a model, Gemini Pro, and then we prompt, we ask it a simple question. So I'm going to put this in another code block since, okay, so we run this. Then we run this. So this is generate content. So this is text, right? And Gemini can do a whole bunch of other things as well. Okay. All right. So this model is not available. So let me see if I want to view the models that are available. Um, list models. Let's see if that will work. So list models. We can use list models. It's a generator. So let me turn it to a list so I can review it. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of them here. I'll probably just pick. Yeah, so this is an embedding model. We are going to look at embedding later on when we get into it next week. So embeddings are really interesting. It's interesting. So you have Flash native audio, we have audio, we have Flash Live. I think we can go to Flash. We have VO, which does video generation. I would like to see what VO can do. Um, this is again an embedding model. Um, we have Gemini Robotics. They have a lot of models here. So let's go with Flashlight latest. Okay. Flashlight latest. Okay. Right. So it gives me this interesting stuff. But the interesting thing you see is it's actually is this is markdown, and the markdown is being printed, as markdown. So I would like this markdown. I would like to print it in my Jupyter notebook in a way. So there's a way to do this. I have to import. Let me do this. Um, from Python. Um, let's see whether it's in HTML. Probably I'm not getting the right thing here. Okay. Yeah, I got the wrong thing. It should be ipython.display. Yeah. Yeah, so okay. So with this, I can now display anything as markdown, right? So instead of printing, I can use display and then markdown. Yeah, so this will now look much better. Let's see how it looks. Right. So the markdown comes in and it's formatted properly. So I was asking it to explain reinforcement learning. And so let me even try something. How to generate, how to generate um, speech from text using Gemini. Good. So you have effectively written your own simple, you know, API. It even gave me the code. So I'll leave this as an assignment to do, but this is interesting. You even have a Python code here. Synthesize text to speech. Okay, so that is Gemini. And so the next thing I would like to just show us is streaming responses. So I think we've already seen it here a bit. Sometimes the response comes as a stream. So if you are using JavaScript, let me put that in my code pen. It's not like it's going to work here, but anyway, it's just for you to see. Um, you can use if for example Gemini, you would use await get content stream, right? It has a get content stream function, so it's going to give you that as a stream. But streams keep coming, right? So streams keep coming, and so you have to loop, right, and keep getting the chunks that are coming from the stream until there is no chunk anymore, right? So that's why you wait for as long as there is a chunk coming in, right? By the time the stream has fully loaded, there won't be any chunks anymore. But the interesting thing is that you have the await so that you don't block your browser waiting for the stream to come. It's done on, it's done asynchronously. So it means that while you are waiting for the stream to finish loading, your browser can be doing other things, right? So same thing with the, if you're doing with Python or any other language for that matter, right? There's always a way to do it. This is how you would do it, right? Um, Again, you specify that stream is true, and this is using Gemini. You specify that stream is true, and then you keep waiting, you keep looping until the response is empty. That means it's so we can try this, right? Let's see how this works. It says this the response of parts quick accessor requires a single candidate. So it's possible that nothing was getting streamed. Oh yeah, it's still the same error. So I got an error here. So I need to change the model again. Gemini Flash. So this is basically how you would do streaming. Not that hard. The main thing is that you are going to loop. You always have a loop. And as you are looping and taking each chunk, you will check and confirm if there is something in the chunk. If the chunk is empty, then it means that it has finished streaming. So you can see here. So streaming is really good when the content that is coming back to you is a lot. Of course, from the server side, it's going to send it to you in a stream, so you have to wait. So it's always good to use an asynchronous method so that you don't block your browser waiting for streams to come in. Okay, there's one other thing I would like to try here. With Gemini, you can do, there's what we call multimodal, right? Okay, well, all of them have that capability, right? That allows you to do streaming. Let me show you another example of streaming with, let's see. I'm going to skip REST API, but I think we had done REST API somehow. Okay, we had done REST API, but let's look at multimodal. Multimodal basically means you can have multiple different kinds of inputs and outputs. Okay, so this is a good example of multimodal. So we will have to have a file here. So instead of using this cat, I'll use one of these other things that we have already generated. Black woman. Okay. Um, Now Gemini Pro Vision. So this is vision. Now I'm going to ask it to describe this image or caption this image. Okay, let's try with describe this image first. By the way, let me make this into a function so that I get all my stuff, you know, properly done. Um, so instead of just printing response.text. Okay, so what I want to do here is the image of black woman, which had been generated by, so this is another interesting experiment you can do. Write a prompt, send it to an image generator, it generates an image, then send that image to another, send it back, to a text-based model or a multimodal model and ask it to describe that image for you. And let's see if you get back your prompt. So here you can base64 encode the file. You read the file and then you encode it in base64, right? And then you can send that. So when you are asking it to, when you're uploading an image, in this case for Gemini, you specify it as inline data, right? And then you pass the data as an object that contains two things, one being the data, and then the second one being the MIME type. Of course, it's not JPG that we have, it's PNG. It's PNG, and so the image MIME type is image/PNG. Okay, so I'm going to now run this and see what I get. Okay, so I'm sure it's still the same problem that Gemini Pro Vision, I cannot have access to it. So let me see the other vision. Let's see if there's any vision, any multimodal models. Uh, well, let's use the one that we have. So this is another thing that probably how do I find what I want? Like there's so many different models. How do I find the one that gives me, you know, what I need. So, but let's use the same one we had before, which was Gemini Flashlight latest. I don't know if this can do image, but let's just try. Let's just try and see if we can do that. Hopefully it's multimodal as well, so it should be able to do this. Right. So it gives us a response. This is a medium close-up photograph of a young black woman who appears to be speaking or presenting. By the way, it is black woman, so this is the image that is describing. And we can check how good its description is. I would like to ask if it has identified anything strange about this woman. Let me do this. Describe this image. Is there anything strange about it? So I'm not giving it any tips. Let me see if it will figure out the three fingers. I doubt. Okay, right. So this is the medium close up. Is there anything strange? I'm not interested in all these ones. The image is generally realistic and well composed. However, upon close inspection, the texture of the hands and some details of the clothing, it may have been generated by artificial intelligence. So if you can hand it, the fingers and palms of the hands lack the fine, natural, and precise joint definition, typically seen in high quality photographs. Structure seems slightly too smooth. Jewelry, the texture and shape of the gold necklace appear somewhat amorphous. So it has actually looked at the hands, but it still cannot tell me that there are only three fingers. It's talking about texture and precise joint definition. Can you believe that? There you go. I can't believe it. So you couldn't even see that this image has three fingers. Anyway, okay. So translation. So let's let's do something. So I'm going to give us a um maybe that will be our task, right? Um we can combine training, but I would like to see how this goes, right? Um, there are so many things you could do. There are so many things. We've basically run out of time. We've basically run out of time. But let me show you some example codes of things that we can be looking at. So we've looked at streaming already. So let me show you example code for batching, right? So batching would be you want to send requests, so you can send multiple requests at once. Batching is also good for performance, right? So this is a good example of batching, right? So what you can see here is we have three prompts. We have three prompts that you want to send all at once. So you basically do this same thing, right? Messages, role user content. Um, so you take all your prompts and you basically run three of them, right? Three of them. So the other thing is, yeah, you can count this. So this, what we have been doing so all this while has been batching, right? But you can also do parallel batching where you can use let me show you the JavaScript. This is now JavaScript code. Actually, it's not Python code, but let me just put it here. So in this case, because each of these is a promise, right? You let me put it in the other place. I don't want this. So this is a good example where you could do batching, right? You're using promise. So you essentially run three of these. And this can be very useful, especially if there's much capacity at the back end. You want to speed things up. You make three calls to the client, one with each message, right? And then because each of this is basically a promise, you now use promise all. So promise all is going to run these three in parallel. It runs the three in parallel. So this helps if you want to run a lot of different prompts at the same time. Then there is also caching, where you can catch the results from the prompt. You can catch it, you can use a hash, create a hash from the, so this is a good example of caching. Let me just put it in a function. So this is what a good example of what you would do. Um, okay, let me put this out. This has already done this. So you have a function called cached call, right? So if the prompt already exists, you just return the value from the prompt. This is just a simple, straightforward stuff. Of course, this means that the idea of creativity will not happen again. If you send the same prompt multiple times, it will still keep giving the same result. If that's not a problem for you, then you catch it. But if not, then you shouldn't catch, because you may want the LLM to keep giving you new and fresh responses. Okay. So let's do some orchestration, right? Um, so orchestration is where you essentially, let me remove all the other things. You essentially take your prompts. You can see that we have two prompts here. We put each of them in a function, right? So you have a function that does translation, right? And that function is going to call a prompt with a translation prompt. You can tweak this prompt anyhow you like, right? You can say, okay, you can even put it as a system prompt, or you can, like in this case, the actual prompt is embedded in here, and you are saying translate to French. Then you have another one that summarizes, right? And your prompt is also saying summarize. And then you now orchestrate those by calling the two of them. First of all, you call translation and then you summarize. So what this does is that it first of all translates the text, right, into French language. You specify the language in this prompt. And then you now call the summarization one, right? And you pass that in, okay? And it gives you, that. Then you return the value, which is a combination of both. So that's how you do orchestration. Basically, it is, um, you know, why would you want to orchestrate? Sometimes a single model or API provider cannot do everything you need. Okay. So sometimes you may split the task among, so for example, if you needed to do translation and then summarization like you're seeing here, one model may not be able to do the translation for you. So what you do is you you split the task into steps. So we have a translation task. That translation task, you can see we sent it to a different model, right? And then we have the GPT 4.1 mini, does the translation task. And then you have another one that does the um, summarization. So that's the first reason. You want to always use the right model for each step, right? The second reason is that you want to have a fallback if one API fails. So that's another thing you could do in orchestration. You would set up like a list of fallback. So you send your prompt to one, it fails. You fall back, you send to the next one, and you keep going until you can get um, a good response. The other thing you can do is you can mix small models for tasks that are not very complicated with but that have some good quality. But when you need very high quality, then you can also send to those ones, right? And then it really is very important when you are trying to save cost, right? Because then smaller models may cost less or may even be free, right? But larger models, because the large compute, may be more expensive. So it helps. It's not all every simple task that you be sending to a large model, right? If the task is small enough that small model can handle, then you send it. Of course, it's after doing it so many times, you can figure out an optimal setup or configuration of multiple. So that is why you orchestrate. Let me try that here. Um, so let me just post this as some of the reasons why you would orchestrate. Okay. Um, okay. So let me take this example that we had in JavaScript and I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it now with Python. So of course this Python, we don't have a sync function. Um, we actually have sync def, so we can keep that and take this. Uh, yeah, this is Python. We don't have these braces. Um, we can do awaits, but we don't really need await. This is a dictionary, messages, row, content. This should be an F string. So an F string, we don't normally need this. I think I can split this way. Okay. Um, okay, summarize. Interestingly, I could have just posted this on any of these and it would have given me the JavaScript equivalent. But sometimes, we want to do stuff on our own. So I'm not going to use OpenAI. Let me use Gemini. So Anthropic, I don't have an Anthropic API key. So I'm going to use what I have. I didn't I didn't show you guys Open Router, so maybe this is a good opportunity. Open Router uses the same thing as OpenAI, basically. The only difference is that I will put Open Router key here, and I'll put Open Router URL, and then the rest should work the same way, just like Hugging Face. So so let's start by setting that up. API key. So they have base URL here for Open Router. So the base URL is HTTPS openrouter.ai v1. Okay. Um, then so that's it. I don't need this. I do need to have this. So let me load .env.env.load.m. Okay, then let me bring the Open Router API key in. Okay. Um, let's see if this works. Right. Okay. So I can still do this. I won't have GPT. Now I don't know what I used to use Minimax. So let me try Minimax. Minimax M2 free. And let's see if that will be able to drop pick, right? But yeah, I don't have an Anthropic key right now. So we'll just kind of simulate it. I'm not going to ask for max. Okay, well, max tokens, messages, oh, content. This is an S string. Okay. Okay. Right. So process text. Now we'll do the two together. So we will first of all, we don't have constants in, we don't have data types. So we just have this. Everything else should just work. Return dictionary range and the summary. Right. So everything else should just work. Okay. Now, um, so I can now do this, right? So this is all nice. Let me run this. Then I can now call my orchestration by calling response equals process text. This is something I want to hear about in French. Now, the interesting thing is you could actually ask a question. So this is a good case of, yeah, this seemed to work. Print response. Unable to trace malloc to get the object allocation trace back. Okay, so I should have waited. It says it was never awaited. Await. Okay. Yes, so async function. Well, there you go. Okay, I'm not going to do this. Let me just forget about awaiting. Okay.
Uh, Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the response is throwing error. That await. Is it an
Oh, yeah,
async
that's
function?
true. Oh, maybe that's it's not sync. Um, it's not sync. I've taken that out, but there was another error that was even blocking this FR. It seems FR actually gives me a string. So the JavaScript equivalent was maybe something else. String has no attribute content. Okay, so summary should also be a string. Right. Okay. For routine process text was never awaited. Um, well, it shouldn't be awaited, should it? Right. Okay, so that's correct now. It now says model not found. Um, why is the French in HTML? That's huh, hold on. I'm actually getting entire HTML here. After translating, that must be an error. Let's see. Translate. I'm surprised.
Oh, sir, could it be that the model does not support translation?
Yeah, well. So I just said, let me dump this here. This is HTML, which is very surprising. It's actually giving me stuff, but it's HTML. Like, doesn't make sense. I wonder if there's a way I can get the HTML. Okay, let's see if I can get HTML to display. From IPython dot HTML import. No, we don't have display in HTML. Okay, let me see what display does to response. Display response. Okay, maybe it's going to give me this. Um, yeah. Mm. Okay, this is a different thing. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. Okay, so I don't get anything. Basically, I get like nothing, which is interesting. In other words, um trying to display the process text. Well, I think I'll take this home because this is surprising. I have um let's do this. Response. I'm surprised. Let's look at the response first. It was telling me the response is a string. So the response is doc type. This is HTML. It's CSS. It's basically an empty string. It's possible that this doesn't exist anymore. I remember when I checked, maybe it doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe my open router. Is there anybody that has which other open router model can we use? I've used Minimax M2 free. There's a Minimax M2 free, which I've used before and it's free. But okay, let's try maybe DeepSeek. Which of these DeepSeek 3.5 Turbo, is that DeepSeek? DeepSeek chat. Well, let's see. Yeah, I think I remember NVIDIA Nemotron also working for me, so maybe I'll try that one. Let's try this DeepSeek chat first. See what we get. Okay, so there's a problem. It's possible that my token has expired. So let me first of all see if I can get any token. Open router. I hope they have not blacklisted me. Keys. Let me make a new key. All right. Uh, did we? Let me reload .n. Oh, you want? Oh, I'm sorry. This is the mistake. It should be API. API, API v1, right? Yeah. I made the mistake here. I'm the one that made the mistake. Uh, yeah, that's right. No auth credentials found. Okay, this should be open router. Open router. Should be open router. Yes. So I need to go back to Minimax. Minimax M2 free. I know for a fact that Minimax is free. No endpoints found for Minimax. Minimax M2 free. Yeah, I've been using Minimax M2 free. Maybe the API is wrong. Let me check. Maybe what's the open router API endpoint? I think I may have gotten it wrong. Okay, I've seen it. Yeah, but I think I got it finally. It's openrouter.ai slash API slash v1. So this is now correct. Open router API key is correct. Let me just confirm that I got the API key correct. Yeah, I got that. So translate Minimax M2 free. Um, so everything else should be okay. But it's saying Minimax is not there anymore. So maybe Minimax is not there. Okay, so which other one can we use now? Minimax is no more free, right? Let's try NVIDIA. Hmm. I might be one of those that contributed to making Minimax no more free because I used it to grade all of the, that's what I used to grade all of the stuff, all of the submissions last week. They go don't vex block me. Okay, this time it's working. Nemotron is working. Okay, so I don't have cloud. So what should I use? I need another model. Or maybe we just use the same, maybe I use Gemini. Gemini is always reliable. So let's use Gemini. So I could have even used, okay, this is what I'll do. I'll use Nemotron to summarize and I'll use Gemini to translate. Um, okay, let's change this. I just use this. So let me use let me use Gemini to translate. So for Gemini, I need to use Gen AI. Um, so the prompt is now translates to French. And I'm not going to stream it. It's not long enough to stream it. So just forget about the streaming. So, okay, let's see what happens with this now. So you can see how this is, it's easy to do if you have a single, place that you can, um, uh, okay, because I said display HTML, so I should just print response. I don't know why this is not working. So, if you can write stuff, yeah, so we've gotten something finally. If you can write stuff that, like a container that can handle any kind of, any kind of um, provider, then you are good to go. You just choose the provider and the adapter will just handle translate using that provider's own SDK and all of that, right? Okay, so this is the response. Here are a few ways to translate. This is something I want to hear about in French, depending on the nuance. So you have so many different French. Then the summary. Okay, this is a full summary. I guess um I should have parsed it better. But anyway, we've kind of run out of time. I just wanted to demonstrate this. We can clean this up. I just wanted to demonstrate this whole issue of how you can orchestrate. There's so many things you can do, with all of these LLMs. The last thing I wanted to show us was how you could do a microservice, but maybe I can leave that for, I can leave that for next week. We'll visit it next week. I already did VS Code last. So I'm going to give something like a task. So the task is going to be something like this. Um, yeah, I'll do microservices next week or any other time, from now. I'll put it in the to-do list because a microservice is basically just all what we are doing. The only thing is that you package it into an endpoint or something that somebody will call. So it's not a big deal. We are still going to do packaging stuff into endpoints, right? But what I want to, there's a task here that I would like us to look at, a very interesting one. Let me see. Yeah, so we're going to do translation, more or less like what I translation with Gemini. So this is how it's going to look like. Let me post it here. So you have user input, right? Gemini will do translation, Claude will do summarization, then use any OpenAI to do tone polishing, and then response to client. So I want us to do this. This is more or less still like prompt chaining, right? But there are specific tasks now. The idea is we want a user to want you to translate. You can choose any language as your or it can even be part of the prompt, right? It would be nice if we could choose African languages or your native language and let's see what it does. Gemini is really very good at translation. So Google is good at translation. So I would advise you start with Gemini for translation, right? Then summarize it. So one task I would have liked to do would be a language translator, maybe with speech to text, text to speech. But we'll leave the speech to text, text to speech parts for now, leave it out for now. Let's even just do translation first. And then there are also multimodal models that will do both, like you give them text, it does, speech to speech, what they call speech to speech. It translates from speech in one language to speech in another language without any intermediate text format, right? But those are really advanced stuff. So I'll pause here for today, and I hope we enjoy this walkthrough. Go and try out, all the things that you can do, and the task is actually going to look like this. So just take note of that. Thank you very much.